we as Christians, we ought to be the ones on the front lines of servant leadership. Because in Mark 10:45, Jesus says, He came not to be served, but to serve. And so, in looking at the organizational structures in work, oftentimes the hierarchy pyramid is that as a person grows in management and leadership, is that they kind of ascend to a higher level of privilege. And we thought, no, Jesus just inverted that pyramid. So if you ever see our BLE logo, you'll see the inverted pyramid. That's why we have that. Because our belief is that as we grow to higher levels of in a position in any kind of a business or school or operation, we really ascend to a higher level of service. Is that God is allowing our platform to broaden and to serve more people. And so we don't rise to a higher level of privilege. We rise to a higher level of service. And so that's how BLE started. And so we started looking for how can we learn to do this in our own work. And so not to be served but to serve became our byline in terms of BLE. And so we started looking for ways of how can we integrate faith in our work. And so some of the BLE studies started as a result of that, and stories started to flow. And so I wanted to, Raelyn has an interesting story. Some of you have heard parts of it, but back then we didn't have a whole lot of color in terms of just feminine and women being involved in BLE. And so it was kind of, guys, we didn't intend it, it just kind of happened.
It was a boys club.
Boys club, that was. So, yeah. So Raelyn gets out of the boys club. So I'd like her to share a little bit of, just tell what was your story getting involved with BLE? Because there weren't many women. It
was none. So I ran into Phil Tolbert in an office building and just met him for the first time, and he invited me to a BLE Bible study, and it was really my first Bible study. And so I went into Wayside Chapel at 6:15 in the morning, and it was me and 10 other men. And I thought, what have you gotten yourself into this time? But anyway, that was very eye-opening for me, because I never saw what I did as a ministry. I never did, and there's something that just needs to click in our heads sometime, and it just doesn't take much. It's just a little click that says, wow, I'm here for a bigger reason than just to help people increase their sales or whatever it is you do. And so that began such a fun journey for me. So as a business coach or corporate chaplain, whatever title I'm in, it's the same thing. What I've learned is the people in your offices and around you are lonely, very lonely, and they're going through something, and we need to be there as believers to help them. And it doesn't need much. It's typically just a couple of pair of ears to listen to what's going on. No judging, no fixing, no preaching, just listening. It's pretty amazing what can happen. I'm looking around here, and Joe said, what are some stories? And we had a fellow that spoke once, which was the Harley Davidson group. I worked with them, and before it was sex, drugs, and rock and roll. That's who I was coaching with. I was their business coach. And watching that transformation, that's what transforms your businesses. Because when he decided that his faith was more important than the other lifestyle, the whole environment, the whole culture began to change. And it was pretty amazing. Some of y'all know Trevor. And he's up doing his thing in Durango at another dealership now, and I miss him terribly. But there's a couple of other people in here that I've been really amazed with. Can I call them somebody?
Sure.
And I put them on the spot, just like...
Sure, why not?
So I met Robbie. He's with CPS Energy. And
Robbie, raise your hands so everyone knows who he is. Okay.
Yeah. So, well, I'm not going to tell this story. Just, what is God doing? How did you get here? if you don't mind me
Yeah,
asking.
stand there, Bobby, yeah, stand there, yeah.
And so thank you for letting me go at first, because one of the things God uses public speaking to keep me humble. So I'm just realizing the connection with BLE, because I'll just go back about who's counting, but 2 years, 2 months, 22 hours, and 33 minutes ago I met Raelyn, and when I met her, God had allowed me to go down a road where I was in a pretty, looking back, it was a pretty dark spot. I was very bitter, kind of angry at everyone at work. I was looking for another job. I was ready to quit. I've been with the company for 21 years, so that's a career. I'm ready to walk away from that. But anyway, I'm in a bad spot. I'm confused, and I met Raelyn, and very quickly there was a connection. And I think in one of the very first conversations, I let her know that I said, I'm struggling with Sunday morning. I'm learning these great things, and then Monday I get to work, and how can you be confused at how to make the connection? But I was in a leadership role, and I've got to go in and have disciplined conversations and performance reviews, and I'm thinking, how do I take love and mercy and forgiveness and apply it? So I told her that, and so she gave me Experiencing God in Your Work, this book over here. That was, for me, that was kind of the switch, right? And so I read through that. I probably hadn't read a book in 20 years prior to that, and a book that I really enjoyed, and I'm highlighting it. But it really helped explain my purpose, what my purpose is, and then how it connects to work. And so that was a great book. And again, so the contrast is I went from very bitter to and quitting. Every morning I drove in, I'm quitting when I get to work. That's just so I can show up. And now I'm extremely excited to go to work, because I understand that when I have an opportunity to witness to someone, and every now and then I have to use words, but it really is in the workplace. It's living it out, and so I'm experiencing joy, and I know that the folks around it recognize it. They've seen this, like, what happened to the bitter guy, and so it opens up great conversations. I could, if I sat one-on-one, I could talk for days about the last 2 years, the journey that Raelyn's helped walk me through, and it is a journey. I'm work in progress and always will be, but I'm really enjoying it. And she's I love, she doesn't hold back any punches, and I've come to love the gut punches. One of the things God uses public speaking to keep me humble. So I'm just realizing the connection with BLE, because I'll just go back about who's counting, but 2 years, 2 months, 22 hours, and 33 minutes ago I met Raelyn, and when I met her, God had allowed me to go down a road where I was at a pretty, looking back, it was a pretty dark spot. I was very bitter, kind of angry at everyone at work. I was looking for another job. I was ready to quit. I've been with the company for 21 years, so that's a career. I'm ready to walk away from that. But anyway, I'm in a bad spot. I'm confused, and I met Raelyn, and very quickly there was a connection. And I think in one of the very first conversations, I let her know that I said, I'm struggling with Sunday morning. I'm learning these great things, and then Monday I get to work, and how can you be confused at how to make the connection? But I was in a leadership role, and I've got to go in and have disciplined conversations and performance reviews, and I'm thinking, how do I take love and mercy and forgiveness and apply it? So I told her that, and so she gave me Experiencing God in Your Work, this book over here. That was, for me, that was kind of the switch, right? And so I read through that. I probably hadn't read a book in 20 years prior to that, and a book that I really enjoyed, and I'm highlighting it. But it really helped explain my purpose, what my purpose is, and then how it connects to work. And so that was a great book. And again, so the kind of the maybe the contrast is I went from very bitter to and quitting. Every morning I drove in, I'm quitting when I get to work. You know, that's just so I can show up. And now I'm extremely excited to go to work because I understand that, you know, want to have an opportunity to witness to someone, you know, and every now and then I have to use words, but it really is in the workplace, it's living it out. And so I'm experiencing joy, and I know that the folks around it recognize it. They've seen this, like, what happened to the bitter guy, you know, and so it opens up, you know, great conversations. I could, if I sat one-on-one, I could talk for days about the last 2 years, the journey that Raelyn's helped walk me through, and it is a journey. I'm work in progress, and always will be, but I'm really enjoying it. And she doesn't hold back any punches, and I've come to love the gut punches. You know? we were talking one day, and she's like, you know, how's your daily quiet time going? I'm like, yeah, it's kind of off and on. And she's like, is that important to you? I'm like, sure. And she's like, because you do what's important to you. I was like, okay. So she's really helped me with kingdom perspective. And I still am, I'm a people pleaser, you know, and so that was getting me nowhere. So she's helped, you know, we're not working for people here, we're working for God, a kingdom perspective. And so that kingdom perspective is very helpful. So that's kind of, maybe in a nutshell, the story.
But what he's not telling you what he's doing now is he is like their undercover chaplain. He is just finding people that need to be cared for. And that's just a beautiful thing. I read somewhere a phrase, and it's just stuck with me. You know, we've got one of our members, Royce, is on a mission trip. And so I don't know if any of y'all gone on mission trips, but you submit your request for funds, you know, you start raising money to go on these mission trips. And this phrase came about, because I always do that. I send them the money and hey, they go. We are fully funded missionaries. We are fully funded missionaries. So we don't have to ask. We're going to get our paycheck and we're going to go, and we are called to be missionaries for Christ. We don't have to, like Robbie said, you know, just be who Christ told us to be. And the change, nothing changed with him except he's just climbing up and moving around and doing some amazing things. There was can I tell one more story now? Shut up. There was this gal. I was working with the husband actually, and they're married. They worked at the same company, and long story short, marriage counseling. So that's where we took them on site and did some counseling and stuff like that, just to figure out where they're at. She was so stressed with the job and the boss that she had to take 6 weeks of FMLA because 86% of all illnesses are due to stress. That's, I think, the number. So she goes away. I meet her and I refer her to somebody else to go into some more in-depth counseling. And she's at the same place, same manager, and she loves what she's doing now because she learned that she's an ambassador for Christ. She doesn't work for this person, she works for that person. And it changes everything, everything. So going into, I don't know where you're working or what you're doing, but if you can get a Bible study going of some sort, a good BLE study kind of helps click that, it just triggers that switch that we need to realize what our real purpose is. It's a much bigger story than what we're living.
And that's when you come here to live in a larger story. And so you and I can go back into our offices or workplaces today, and we can live in the little bitty story. And that's what Robert's talking about, is living in that little bitty story. Bitterness, can't wait to get out of here, grass is greener, can't stand these people. Or we get to live in The big store, God's stores.